Greetings, beloved. Thank you for joining us today. Have you ever wondered why so many women are not equipped for marriage? It's because being a woman does not make you a bride, no more than being a woman makes you a mother. As with so many things in life, there's a process that leads us to our desired end. If your desired end is to be a bride according to biblical standards, then you have tuned in at the perfect time. Chapter 2 of the book of Titus tells us that the aged women should take the younger women through the process of becoming not just brides for a day, but brides for a lifetime. So stay tuned for more of Bridesmaid with me, your host, Renee Bolden.
Last week, I had mentioned just very briefly in our discussion that when I was talking about structure, and I was kind of going through all the examples of what my life looked like in terms of me, kind of maintaining a schedule and all of that. I just kind of briefly mentioned that, a part of that kind of fed into the independence. And so I wanted to talk about that just a little bit, I guess kind of what that looked like and just some things that we need to look out for as wives and I say wives, that encompasses wives to be. If you're submitted to any male authority. So, whenever I'm speaking to us and I'm saying wives, I'm including everyone, even if you're not married, because we always need to be thinking about what does me submitting to male authority look like outside of marriage? Because I think way too often, I think women use that as an excuse not to submit. And I think any woman who has gotten married especially being a part of this ministry, but I think most women would be able to tell you that there's not a switch that just flips on for you. That, okay, I'm married now, so now I know everything to do. That's not how it works. If it worked that way, then there would be no need for Titus 2. There would just be no need for that. The Bible would not tell the aged women to teach the young women how to love their husbands and how to love their children, how to keep the home, and things like that, if it was just going to click one day. And so what you'll find is that the Lord is so merciful and so gracious to give us the answers before we take the test. And so we have to take advantage of that and always also kind of like to, I guess, address this mindset of, somebody who thinks, well, I'm already married, I've already been in it, and how am I ever going to change this? Well, I think when we find that we have maybe been going in the wrong direction and we get the proper directions, the only thing to do is to turn around and go in the right direction. That's the way things change. Nothing changes with us just kind of acknowledging that something needs to change, but then never doing anything about it. So that's the only, it's like I say, the example I use quite often, is how do you eat an elephant? Just one bite at a time. It seems like something impossible to do, but anything that we want to do, if we just take it one step at a time and just obey and do one thing at a time that will make a difference, then we eventually see the difference. But just acknowledging that something needs to change and not doing anything about it, it simply yields no results. And so, again, of course, that's what these discussions are about, yielding different results. And so, I was, talking about the all the structure that is necessary, and it is necessary. I think it's necessary for us to keep things in order, so that so that we actually have something to pass on to the next generation. I think structure, as we saw with the demonstration, it's the glue that kind of holds things together. Not that, so that when we look at a picture of our life, we can actually see a picture and not just, if you can imagine, because I used to work on puzzles quite a bit from a child into early adulthood. And it's the difference between seeing all those pieces scattered all over the place versus the finished product. And that's what we have to keep in mind, that, like in life, in marriage, we have all these pieces, but the idea is to get them cohesive together to form a picture. What is marriage supposed to look like? What part am I supposed to play? Where do I fit in to create this final picture in the end? And that's what structure is. So what I was addressing, and what I kind of mentioned, and what I want to address is the sort of the downside to this idea. Of course, I was unmarried, as I had mentioned then at the time. So I was, I put myself in a position. I'm not going to say I was put in a position, but I put myself in a position that I just simply had to be responsible for a lot of things in my life. And then keep in mind, because we talk about family patterns, right? So at the time that I'm speaking of now, when I was doing all of that, my mother still was not married. My mother had gotten married early on in her early 20s. Her husband passed away, and she had not remarried the entire time I was growing up. So I didn't even have at that time a male directly related to her that I could submit to. My two oldest brothers, talking about family patterns, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure if this came up, but one of the family patterns was, of course, you all know that I had given up one of my daughters for adoption, and I think maybe Apostle Bolden may have come back and mentioned that, how my mother also, because her husband was killed, gave her two oldest sons to their grandparents to raise. And so I wasn't close to them either, because I didn't grow up in the house with them. So there was still this disconnect from a male authority that I could have been submitted to. I had older brothers, but and then the next oldest brother was out of state somewhere, and we didn't really have a relationship. So there you have another generation um, of a unmarried woman having to structure her own life. And so I put myself in a position that I had to, but that's not the ideal. So married, unmarried, you still need structure. But God's way is that you will have structure under male authority. That's the way He designed for it to be. And so one of the things that clearly happened was, I found out, unfortunately, that I could live on my own, and I could have a structured life outside of male authority. Well, that kind of plays against you when you get married, or if you want to get married. It's fine, to say, oh, I had it all together and I was able to do this and I was able to do that, but there are always pros and cons to everything. And so the downside to that is, now that, okay, I move into marriage, and this is a really big thing, because we all know, we hear and probably see billboards with the divorce rates about, how I think the average is about 50% of marriages, make it and 50% don't. That's a really high number, and if I'm misquoting that, forgive me. Just get that, but I think that's what I've kind of read or heard people quote at different times. And the question is, why is that divorce rate so high? What is happening? If we know that it's a spiritual institution, and a lot of people aren't doing it in a spiritual manner, but what else is happening? It's exactly what I just described, where too many women are going out and establishing this independence. They're finding out, oh, I can maintain a structure. I can do certain things, and I don't have a man in my life, and thinking that it's okay. And so then what happens is, that woman maybe always wanted to get married, just like I did, moves into marriage. And what happens is she continues establishing this independence outside of male authority, but inside of the confines of marriage. So it's like being single but married. In other words, she never truly moved into, because remember, there's no switch. There's no switch that says, okay, well, now that I'm married, I just automatically turn off everything I ever learned how to do for myself. It doesn't happen. We have to purposely pursue that. We have to purposely know what is my role, and how does this work? How am I supposed to operate in the confines of marriage? Yes, I know how to do things, and this is one of those things. I'm gonna just kind of interject here, that I fully intend to talk about one day, and that is the transferable skills. Which, if you've ever been in the workplace, um, you might be familiar with the term, or just maybe familiar with seeing it, where you were at another job, and I'll use this for an example. There was a young lady, and I think I used this example before. There was a young lady who came and applied for a position in one of the offices that I used to work in, and I was a part of the hiring panel and screening panel to get applicants. And we were looking for someone who had office experience, and she had zero. But she had such an impressive resume in other areas that we were like, okay, let's just, bring her in for an interview. And so we're talking about transferable skills. She had no office experience, but she did have computer experience, because as she was going through school, high school, and college, she had to work on all the office programs that we needed her to know, to work in the office. So she had not applied it in an office setting, but she had applied it, and she had a lot of experience with it. And so the other the other person who was on the hiring panel with me was like, they were kind of, I don't know, she doesn't have experience. Excuse me, I'm sorry. But I say, but think about it. We're wanting somebody who is familiar with and know, Microsoft Office, Microsoft Excel, Microsoft PowerPoint. We need somebody who knows this. I said, and think about it. I said, she has this. She knows this already. So let's just kind of talk and see. And then come to find out, she was a great, great asset, because she knew how to transfer the skills from the classroom into the office. And so when we learn things outside of marriage, we need to learn how to transfer those things but in its proper place. So she didn't come in trying to run the office. She came in the position that she was hired for, and she learned how to use those skills that she learned in the classroom. She learned how to use them in the office. And so this is the way we have to learn to do that. Again, there's no switch. We have to do something. We have to be able to think, okay, so I'm a great, I'm an organized person, I'm, like some people say, I'm self-motivated, I'm a go-getter, I like to make things happen. And I believe that you don't have to get that from the world. I think that's built in a lot of women, but I think a lot of women use it in the wrong way. I think a lot of women use those types of skills to advance themselves, to place themselves above authority. And, I might have said this, a while back in one of the early on messages that, so if I am a self-starter, if I really, I'm self-motivated, rather, not self-starter, self-motivated, I mean, I don't really need somebody to just push me along, then that means, and I'm going to tell you, this is how I transfer that skill into marriage in its proper place. If I know I'm married to a man who has a really busy schedule, then that means I should be self-motivated enough to keep up with what he has going on, not let things slip through the crack, be a support to him, be a team member, and say, hey, like I'm keeping up with these things that you have going on. So, oh, did you remember that you have such and such coming up, or somebody's wanting to talk to you at this time, but we already have something else scheduled. That's the self-motivation, not him missing something and then me in the background knowing I could have done something to help that situation, but I just let it go under the guise, well, I'm just being submitted, so I can't do anything. Because sometimes people go to the far extreme. I will do nothing because you won't let me lead, you won't let me take over, you won't let me. I'll just sit back and I won't. Oh, you want me to do something? Hold my hand and tell me everything you want me to do. And I have witnessed this play out over and over and over again, where somebody goes from, they have the ability to help. They have the ability to be a team player. They have the ability to add something and be an asset to the team, but because they cannot control it, they just don't put forth an effort. And then you have to take their hand and walk them through every step. Oh, what do you want me to do? 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 And get walked through every single step. And I'm talking about transferable skills, if you're that self-motivated person, then make it work in your marriage. That's the type of thing you're supposed to do. So that was really kind of a sidebar. And I'm going to talk about the other side of that, which is where we're going in terms of being led by male authority and how important it is. So we have these parts of our character that's just built in us by the Lord, that's meant to help us manage the home with our husbands, but too many women are out of their place. So here's a picture, and I know I'm going to use football. If you've ever heard of anything related to football, you know that typically there's one head coach. I've seen different clips, and I've asked about it, where they might, show like a commercial or something, a football clip on a commercial, and you might see like, I don't know, 5 or 6 different men out there. Yeah, I imagine they all have their different positions, but there's one head coach. Well, imagine marriage being like this. There's a football team, and there are 2 head coaches, and half the team is going to follow one head coach, and then half the team is going to follow the other head coach. And so this is what goes on in marriage. So obviously that would be chaos. A woman going into marriage with this independent mindset that, I can do all of this. I don't need you to tell me this. I don't need you. I have this. I already know that I can take care of myself. I already know that I can have structure. Oh, thank you. I've already done this. I've already proven that I can do these things. So, and then it kind of creates this question of, so what do you have to add to me? I already know how to do all these things. And so you have that same scenario playing out, where it's supposed to be one head in the marriage, but when the woman has developed this independent attitude because she discovered that she can do something on her own, then it's like having 2 head coaches and the team split in half. And again, that's going to be chaos. One person has to have the final authority. And so if the wife is proving her independence and how structured she is and how she can do it on her own and how she's this go-getter and, I have my own thing going on. Yes, you're my husband, but then it's like, but husband to do what? And oftentimes that's where we find ourselves, where women are like, that same mindset. Well, what are you adding to me? Of course, that's not a thing, because the man isn't supposed to be adding anything to the woman. And I think we talked about this more in detail, this idea that, of course the woman is made for the man, but she is supposed to be figuring out what is your mission and what is your plan, so that I can transfer these skills that I learned to help you. Not, I'm already paying my bill, so what else can you do for me? That's the wrong mindset. And of course, red flag, light bulb moment, the man is supposed to be paying the bills. So the idea is not to compete with him about, I'm doing this, how much more can you do for me? That's not the way that's supposed to go. That is one of the most warped mindsets I've ever discovered that, a woman has forgotten what her husband is supposed to do for her. And they'll say all day long, I want a man to pay the bills, but then turn around and say, well, I've already been paying my bills. What else can you do? Well, what else is there for him to do? If you're already doing everything that he's expected to do in marriage, what else is there for him to do? You're being the man at that point. And again, we go back to having two heads. Well, if the man is being the head and the woman is being the head, well, who's following? Who's being the support? You understand what I'm saying? And so it creates this atmosphere of chaos where, again, we know that the woman is supposed to be following. We know that that wife is supposed to be following the husband, but how does that happen? It's kind of like that little example that we used about following your emotions versus following your head. And you can't do both at the same time. You're going to choose one or the other direction. And so when we go into marriage, yes, we may have learned how to do some things on our own, but the idea is, okay, I learned this so that I could help my husband, not so I can fight with my husband, not so I can compete with my husband, not so I can take over my husband. That's not what it's for. And so one of the things I was talking about, how a woman's mindset when she's, has the ability to help, but she might just sit back and just don't do anything. Now, here's the flip side of that. Because a woman should be structured within the confines of male authority, she should have the ability to be steerable, to be teachable, coachable, meaning she has the ability to take orders. I think what we might call it is being micromanaged. That you have it within you to be able to take the step-by-step instructions, that you can seek guidance for step-by-step instructions. In other words, and I was thinking about this, there has to be a very, very delicate and intricate balance of, I know how to take the lead in this thing, but I don't have to take the lead, and I can ask for step-by-step instructions. I can ask for your guidance every step of the way and be okay with it. There is a very delicate balance in that. So then and I'm gonna just give a simple example. Of course, we've been, doing some research in in Ohio, looking at some different properties and things like that. And so in that, I'm going to constantly go to my husband and ask, what do you think about this? Or did the area change? For instance, we had a particular zip code that we were looking at. And then I found out, okay, well, there's a suburb of this area. And instead of me taking it upon myself to just include all the other zip codes, I went and I asked, is it okay? Do you think we should just only stick with this particular zip code? Is it okay to expand this to the suburbs of this zip code? Is it okay to go this far out? So I'm doing this research, but I'm constantly asking for his input and for his guidance. Are we still moving in this direction? Do we need to, do I need to scale it back? Do I need to do something different? So that's one example of how I'm asking for guidance continuously, asking for guidance. How should I do this? Is the Lord giving you something else? Do I need to change the way I'm looking at this? Do I need to change what I'm doing? So that's one aspect. So then the other side, where I have this same skill to be able to move forward and do things. So when I go into the kitchen to prepare a meal for the family, I'm not asking my husband every 10 minutes, do you want seasonal or do you want accent? Would you like me to season the rice or do you want just plain rice? Do you understand what I'm saying? That's where I'm supposed to be self-motivated. That's where I'm supposed to take charge. That's where I'm supposed to know what I'm doing. So there's a balance there, and sometimes, too often probably, a wife will think because I'm really good at this and I feel very confident in the kitchen, then, I can just place that confidence wherever I want to place it in the marriage. And that's not true. That's not the way that works. You need to be confident when it comes to having structure for the family, providing family meals, taking care of the home inventory, making sure whatever structure your husband has laid out for the home, that's being carried out with the children. We should be confident in those things. But that does not mean that you take that same confidence and transfer that into taking over the husband's authority. I'm just going to place this wherever I want it. No, things have to be put in its proper perspective. And so back to, just this idea of the woman needing to have the structure, needing to be self-motivated in some things, needing to have the confidence, but it still falls within the confines of that male authority. And so I guess it goes back to understanding just how much we need the male authority and how much we need to be able, and I'm telling, when I say it's detrimental to the success of a marriage the or being unsuccessful, it can be either way. It's needed. It is so needed that a wife is able to follow her husband. And you all hear Apostle Bolden talk about this all the time. A lot of times the Lord will lead him to do things, and he may share it with me, but I don't understand it, and I don't have to. It's not my place to understand it all. I just have to remember, okay, I'm just supposed to be following you. And then when he shares things with me, I just immediately start praying, number one, that the Lord will continue to give him direction, and then that I will be able to know and understand how I can be a help in carrying out whatever it is that the Lord has given him. Not, well, help me understand, how does this work in our life? How is this going to affect us? And I don't go into all of that, and we're not supposed to, because we have to be able to follow. We have to and be able to, and I want to definitely point this out, be able to seek guidance, because that's another thing that goes right along with what I was saying, this idea that a wife can have the ability to do something, but because she can't take control, she's just withholding and she's not giving her all. And it's the same way. We know that our husbands are to lead us, but that doesn't mean we're not supposed to be actively seeking out guidance from him. In other words, I know I need help with something, but, well, if you don't come talk to me and you don't come unveil everything that's in me for us to discuss or help me along, I'm not going to seek your guidance. I'm not going to ask you anything. I'm just going to wait for the Lord to reveal everything to you. And that's not the way it's supposed to be. Humility says, you know what, I have something going on, every time I see so-and-so, or every time I go to this particular store, I feel, some contrary feelings rising up. Can we talk about this? Help me figure this out. So we don't have to wait for our husbands to go in prayer and the Lord give them something. If we know we have something going on, again, I'm talking about pursuing his guidance, pursuing his leadership, not just waiting for him to come to us, because really that's a means of hiding. That's really all it is. So it's important for us to understand not just that we need the male guidance, need the male leadership, but that we should be pursuing it. And this kind of brings me to, something I want to share, just something that I witnessed. So, when we started the handmaids service team, shoot, I don't know, that's may have been about 2 years ago, possibly, we started. So, we all kind of sat down and, just kind of had a meeting and talked about, service and, how service would be provided, to Apostle Bolden, and kind of, it's directly to him or for him, regarding the ministry, however it plays out. But the idea is still service. And so in that, everyone, all the handmaidens had gotten Apostle Bolden's direct phone number. I think I had given it to everybody that maybe, I think it was that night in the meeting. Everybody got his direct number to be able to contact him. And here's the idea. Now we know, especially if you haven't gotten married yet, if you're not under some head, if you don't have some other male that you're already submitted to, then you submit to your pastor. He's going to be your head. He's going to help you with your spiritual walk and do all these things until you get married. Well, of course, he's going to continue because he's still going to be your pastor, but it'll just be in a different way. But so he's accessible. He's accessible to everyone, and the idea is, something might come up. You might feel like you need your shepherd's guidance, and you have that. And so, in that, I can say that it's been very few times. I can remember, one sister, she had a family emergency, and I can remember she called him directly. But it's not something that I don't find that it's been taken advantage of like it could be. I know if I was not married, if I didn't have a male authority, and I had access to my pastor like that to say, I have this going on, whatever the case is, this is something that came up, what do you say about it? And that's on a general level, but I'm going to make this a little bit more specific. That I would take advantage of that. I would really take advantage of that. And so here you are, I'm going to just use myself as a wife. So I'm married, and I just have things in everyday life, things dealing with marriage, things dealing with children, things dealing with the ministry especially. There's a lot of responsibility that I have, and I have to make sure that I'm always under my husband's authority. I have to make sure that I'm not getting out of my lane, which means I have to constantly communicate with him. There are times, and you might think it's strange, and I say this all the time, about I talk to my husband all the time, and I get wisdom from him. Sometimes, and it might seem like a simple thing. I might be in a conversation with one of the sisters, and I might just share something at some point that's said, and I'll say, I haven't sent this yet, but this is my response. What do you think about it? You think I should edit this? You think I should take some of this out? Should I say all of this? And I'll read it to him, and he'll let me know. I'm talking about seeking and pursuing guidance, step by step. And that's not something that I've seen really playing out. What I see is exactly what I mentioned a little while ago, and I'm being more specific now to the handmaidens. So what I've seen is kind of this loose, distant. Oh yes, I'm submitted. You're my male authority. Yes, I want your guidance, but a lot of times not really being personal, not really asking. It's like, oh, I might ask 2 questions here, but then I'm gonna make 10 decisions over here without ever asking anything about it. And so as a wife, that's not going to work. That would never work. It's back to the 2 head coaches when you start doing that. When your decision making looks like this, you're making more decisions for your life than the person that you're allegedly submitted to as your male authority, then you're not submitted. That's just a good way to gauge that, because sometimes we can think that we are submitted. Oh, I'm submitted to my male authority, but if you, in your decision making, you're making more decisions than your male authority is, you're not submitted to him. Because as a wife, again, that would never work. Now there's this independent thing going on where it's an independent mindset operating within the confines of marriage. And so I'm gonna go on with this about, like the handmaiden. So we have that where you have access directly to your male authority to talk about whatever you might need to talk about for spiritual guidance, and just kind of especially big decisions and things like that that you have going on. And I had the privilege of watching an interaction, kind of, I say, watching it play out, this interaction where um, I saw a sister who was asking, just asking very specifically, may I get help on this? And I was just watching. I wasn't really, I was kind of loosely involved, if you will. I wasn't directly involved in it, but just kind of knowing what's going on and just kind of watching the process unfold. And, and I watched her just ask, you know, over and over again, what do I do? How do I do this? What do you want me to do? What's the next step? How do I do this? How do I do this? And then on the tail end of it is a great result. And this is the point that I'm making. Number one, I want to say, because this came to my mind before I came in here, I understand very, very clearly that I don't have my husband to myself. He's a pastor, he's a shepherd. That means people not only here locally, but all over the world have to have access to him. People need God. People need what the Lord has given him. I am fully aware of that. So I'm not being a guard dog over my husband. In other words, and this is what I'm saying, because this, this sister who he was helping, it was more of them interacting and me just kind of, I had a little input here and there, just kind of saying something, but I wasn't directly involved in it. Like, let me hold your hand. No, because that's what the man is for. And this is what I'm talking about, being able to know and be confident where you need to be, but then at times also knowing the balance of, I need a man to guide me through this process. What am I supposed to do? Yes, some things, I may be able to help with, but you have no idea how much, again, even in simple everyday conversations, I will stop because I will just feel an unction. Let me ask my husband about this. How do you think I should respond to this? And it may not be anything. If you could look at the conversation, a text message conversation going on, and you might think, oh, there's nothing to this. But that's where we have to be spiritually minded and sober minded so that the Holy Spirit can speak things and say, you know what, this is, ask your husband about it. I might not have a reason. It might not on the surface, it might not look like anything grand to even bring him into, but he's still my authority. Because what I have to realize is that every response I give to somebody is going to have a direct impact on him in this ministry, and he's responsible for this ministry. He's responsible for my actions and for my, in terms of him being my head. And so I have to keep those things in mind, that I don't just respond to people the way I might think is appropriate. Well, let me find out. Let me find out what is the appropriate response. In other words, this is one of those scenarios where it's hand-holding time. Every scenario, is not hand-holding. Every scenario is not going to be micromanaging time. But we have to be able to, and if we have it in our hearts to be able to follow, if we have it in our hearts to be able to seek guidance and know, and not just know that the husband is the leader, but I'm talking about really respect that and honor that and appreciate it. If you appreciate the wisdom of a man, you're going to seek out the wisdom of your husband or your male authority. You're going to pursue that. If you appreciate it, if you think it's something of high value, if you hold it in high esteem, you're going to seek it out. It's not going to be something that you have to think about. But if you're one of those people who've fallen for the trick of, I've already proven to myself what I can do for myself, then you'll find yourself more often than not seeking out guidance after you've already made a mistake. And it's, how do I fix this? How do I backtrack out of this? Oops, I made a mistake. So that's the difference in the mindset. And that's how we can kind of gauge that. Am I always trying to fix something that I messed up? Or am I seeking out guidance before I even get to that point? Am I having to go back and undo things all the time because I was consulting with myself? Or am I seeking out guidance ahead of time and not from the guise of, I don't want to be corrected, so let me ask? No, just, I know you have wisdom. You've helped me in the past. I understand that you're my leader, and I hold your wisdom and your leadership in high esteem. I value what you have to offer me, in other words. And so I'm going to come to you. I'm going to trust you. I understand that we don't think alike. I understand that I have a completely different perspective towards this. And I understand that that's the beauty of it. Because every time I consult myself, I get myself in hot water. So I love the beauty of being able to go outside of my own consultation and seek the wisdom of the one that God has placed over me. And so, that's something that we have to we have to really make sure that that's in our hearts, that it's there. You know, oh, this world is kind of designed in a way for, like for women to be taken advantage of. I was really, really young, really young adult when I understood clearly that a woman should never go to a car lot to purchase a car on her own. Never. And then you heard my husband mention this before about I should have been trying to get an oil change on my own because I was gonna let somebody change my oil for $80, and he was like, Walmart does it for $15. Okay, I wouldn't have known that, right? Why would I know that? I didn't, but I would have been taken advantage of in that sense. You think I was those people who were charging $80 was gonna tell me that Walmart was doing it for 15? Like, oh, save yourself some money. No. We're charging $80, and we hope you come without a man. We hope you set up an appointment and don't ask any man about it. We're depending on it, you know. And that is, I mean, it's just the way of the world. And then we have the way of the world, and then we have God's way. God's way is designed to keep us from those things. God's way is designed to protect us, to protect our innocence, our innocent nature, to protect our nurturing nature, to protect our meek nature, so that we don't have to go out and fend for ourselves. We don't have to get in the trenches and learn the slick ways of the city so that we don't get taken. We don't have to do all of that. We don't have to have this grimy sort of personality to make sure we make it through life. We don't have to have this tough exterior. We don't have to look out for ourselves. We don't have to try to protect ourselves. God has designed it where He has someone who will do that for us, because the things that we will find ourselves trying to protect ourselves from and going out of the way, for instance, women who go and they take self-defense classes. Well, if you just submit to a man, most times, nobody's gonna mess with you and try to do anything to take advantage of you. You don't have to go take self-defense classes. You don't have to do that. And that's just a simple example of how we can go out of our way, spend money, spend time, yoke up with people, take on mindsets and attitudes that we shouldn't, or we can just take on the mind of God and say, you know what, I'm supposed to be submitted to a man, and with that comes protection. And just allow Him to protect us. And I'm going to say this when we talk about protection. That's exactly what it is. Men see things in a way that women will never see them, and men see shystiness a mile away. Women, we're more trusting, we're more vulnerable. I know me, even now at my age, as much evil as I have seen in the world, it is difficult, outside of the Spirit of God, it is difficult for me to determine that somebody random could just do something mean-spirited or, from a place of anger, just do something wicked. Yeah, I know that they're capable of it, but I don't live in that place. So somebody can do something and it could be meant to be harmful, but I'm not processing it like that. I'm not thinking, oh, you're saying something harmful. You're saying something that's meant to do harm to me or plant something evil or wicked in my spirit. Like, I'm not thinking like that. It's like the Lord have to bring those things to my attention. And that's the way we're supposed to be across the board with everything. So, okay, for a very perfect example, I was having a conversation with someone a couple of weeks ago, maybe about 4 weeks ago now. And on the phone, they just said something. And, I was telling my husband about the conversation and I just went on with life. And then the next day, when the sermon was preached, something was said in the sermon. And immediately when it was said in the sermon, my mind went right back to the conversation. And I realized, oh, that person was saying something contrary. They were saying something that wasn't right, but I didn't know it. And then when I was telling my husband when I got out of the message, I was saying, when the Lord had you say this reminded me of the conversation. He was like, yeah, I knew that was from a bad place when you told me about it. It's like, and I just didn't process it that way. And that's the way we're supposed to live, in this place of vulnerability where we don't feel the need um, to be I don't know what's the best word I can use to protect ourselves from everything. I have to know about this. I have to know this information. I have to know the statistics and on the crime in this area, so I can know what's the best place to live and where to go. No, you know what? We don't have to do all of that. That's what the male authority is for. Just something as simple as, and I'm gonna get back to the protection. What I want to bring out about that, just something as simple as a man saying, don't go out 8 and 9 o'clock at night by yourself. Now, you know how the independent woman is processing that? You're trying to control me. You're going to tell me what time I can leave out and go to the store? Now, either you want protection or you don't. you you can't have it both ways. Now, if the man is telling you that's not a good idea, then don't go guard. What I want to say, you shouldn't be going out 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and then you have to arm yourself with mace and pepper spray and bats and knives, and you see what I'm saying? It's silly, but we do these things. Or you could just follow male authority. If he says don't do that, there are some things out there that you don't want to see. You don't want to be involved in all of that. There are some people out there that you could avoid. That they're waiting till nightfall to be out to, approach women. And so sometimes the women will take that protection that's been offered, through God's order and the way He set things up to help us, and women take it like it's a man trying to control them. Which, of course, you know how I feel about that. I completely agree with the word. The man, that husband, is supposed to be controlling. He is supposed to be controlling. And I'm not trying to find a nice, softer word to say. Control is the word. He is supposed to be in control of his home. And if you're a part of his home, that means he is supposed to be in control of you. Control. He is responsible for what goes on with the people who are under his authority. So there has to be boundaries. There has to be some type of boundary set so that he can keep things in order. So yes, he is in control. So him telling you not to go out at night should not be the end of the world. Whatever it is that he's trying to do to protect you. And of course I've shared, different stories about that. So, I want to put that, just kind of say that because women are being taken advantage of all the time. Just that simple scenario. And I think Sister Jones had shared a testimony early on when they first came about, her buying a car and some deal that went on, and her husband had to kind of step in and and fix the situation for her. And I'm sure all of us have stories or know somebody's story where they were, we were taken advantage of. And again, the idea is not to lose your nature and, put on a uniform and get a nightstick to protect yourself. No, the idea is to submit to your male authority. That's where your protection lies, right there. In other words, you don't have to suit up and find ways to. I'm not going to be a doormat. I'm not going to be taken advantage of. That's a bad place to live in, because what happens is you create enemies out of people who are not enemies, and you don't have any control over who you're fighting at that point. You're fighting everybody. It becomes a fight with everybody you engage. Why? Because you're always on edge, ready to protect yourself. Oh, you might take advantage. So it might start off with, walking in the parking lot at night by yourself, but then it's gonna spill over into the daytime. And now everybody's trying. Oh, wait a minute. Um, you asked me to take the trash out twice, or you asked me to wash the dishes 3 nights in a row, and you only did it one night, and just these different things. It becomes a thing where you're now trying to protect yourself against everybody. Everybody's out to get you, because you're not going to contain that to just one area in your life. So either we're going to trust God's order, we're going to trust our male authority, we're going to allow them to protect us, or we'll, go all out of our way to, and really get out of our nature, because that's what it boils down to. From the very beginning, we see even how the devil took advantage of Eve when she got from under her husband's authority. She never should have been off having that conversation. It should have been, you know what? Kind of like I was telling a sister on the phone last night. She wanted to talk about her marriage. And I can talk to you, but I don't want to talk to you about your husband. I would rather just us talk if and I told her, if your husband wanted to talk, then, with my husband present, then we could do that. But since it's just the two of us talking, then, we leave the husbands out of this conversation. Let's just talk about you as a wife. And that my point was, I'm not even going to talk to your husband without my husband present. And Eve should not have been having a conversation about a life-changing conversation with anybody without her husband present. It should have been, you know what, let me get my husband involved in this, because you're saying some things that's going to really be life-changing. Let me see what my husband has to say about this. Could you tell this to my husband so we can see, what he has to say? And that's the way it should be. Because, again, by nature, the world is designed to take advantage of us. But God's design is for us to be protected, for us to have guidance, for us to do that, but all within the confines of that male authority. And so, and I just want to go back to this, and I don't have much else to say. I don't have much else coming to me, but we need to really look at this, and I think this is very, very important, that we really pay attention and look at whether or not we are truly submitted. That's, to me, the most important point. Like I said, I watched, this sister just step by step, what do I do next? What do I do next? How do you want me to handle this? How do you want me to do this? How do you want me to do this? And it was appropriate for that situation, but it's not appropriate for when you're cooking and when you're meal planning and when you already have instructions on what to do with the children. It's not appropriate for that. But I watched her do this, and that's what we need to be able to ask ourselves. The ultimate question is, in my everyday life, am I making more of the decisions, or is it my head, my so-called male authority? Who's making most of the decisions? Am I really able to go step by step and be micromanaged? Do I have the ability to do that? Am I meek enough, steerable enough, teachable and coachable enough to be able to be micromanaged? That was one of the things. I'm just kind of throw this in here when I talked about the last job that I worked at. And, me and my supervisor, that was one of the things that I was complaining about in my heart and complaining to my husband too. I'm sure he was glad when I stopped complaining to him about that job. Um, she wants to micromanage me. I already know how to do XYZ. Never mind. I was constantly having to send those emails out saying, correction, I missed some information. And I guess that lady was like, okay, you don't want to be micromanaged, but you're messing up stuff. You need to be micromanaged, and some of us do. And we need to be okay with that. And here is the trick of the enemy. Oh, if you feel the need to micromanage me, then you're basically looking at me like I'm stupid and like I'm incapable of doing something. No. And I'm gonna tell you the way my supervisor told me. She was like, basically, as long as I'm responsible for your actions, I'm gonna be involved in this until you master it. I'm not turning you loose to make a whole lot of mistakes and then because when the dean come to talk, he's not coming to talk to you, he's coming to talk to me about it. Why did you let her do this? And that's the way it is. Until we mature and can prove that we don't need to be micromanaged in some particular area, then that's what we'll be. But on the other hand of that, to me, when we're meek and we're steerable, when we're humble, we don't mind it at any point. When I'm talking to my husband about something that maybe I might not even think I need his guidance on it, but he might say something. So I don't have to, he might say something to give me guidance on it. I might not ask, but he just might offer it. So if I'm not a meek person, if I'm not following him, then immediately I have fight going on in my mind. I have to determine, okay, why are you getting involved in this? I usually make these decisions. Do I have to listen to you, or are you telling me, or are you just offering a suggestion? So then it becomes this whole fight on the inside of you where you're struggling about whether or not you're going to listen or whether or not. Whereas if you're meek, you're going to be meek. If you're steerable, that's exactly what you are. So when my husband says something, I might even already have in my mind something that I'm going to do, because it might be something that he has freely given me authority to make decisions in. And I might have it in my mind how I'm going to walk this thing out. And he might just come and say something and it completely changes it. And I don't have to go in prayer to follow. It's like, oh, okay, within myself. And this is what we need to check within ourselves, whether or not we have the ability to do that. Am I able to just switch gears like I need to? Am I able to go from, oh, you gave me authority over this, and now you're taking it in this moment, without it being a fight, without me making myself a victim of, oh, you don't trust me anymore? Oh, you don't trust my decision making? Well, what did I do wrong the last time? Did I do something? Oh, you think I'm too stupid to handle this now? You taking it from me? No, it's just that he has wisdom, and maybe God is leading him, and just because he's led by the Lord can just speak something. It's on his heart, and he said do it, and that's just what it is. And it don't have the same way. He's not going to always ask the Lord, well, explain this to me. How does this work? Do you really want me to go tell my wife this, because she usually handles this, but and I don't want to cause no friction. Could you explain this to me just in case she asks me, so we can have it? No, it's not. It's none of that. If he feels an unction to do something, then he just does it, and that's the way. That's because he's submitted to the Lord. And so, as a wife, we have to be the exact same way. And it's not all these questions and, making ourselves a victim and, well, you don't trust me anymore. Well, why did you change this? And, all of these things that, women like to do, get, unnecessarily emotional about just following. Like, it doesn't have to turn into a witchcraft moment. Just let it be whatever it is in the moment. And so I think, to me, That would be the really important thing. Are we able to be micromanaged and still have confidence in ourselves as a person to do the things that we have the responsibility to do, and just flexible enough to just be led at any moment. That's the thing. Being a wife and being able to be flexible, to be led, and remembering that being submitted is not about this loose distance. I'm speaking it with my mouth, but it's not really showing up in my life. If you're actually submitted, then there's going to be some micromanaging going on. And if you're actually meek and steerable, you're going to be okay with it, you know. So I think that's all I have to share about that right now. And of course, I won't end it without just saying this. And I tell you, I mean it when I say it. The more I live day by day, the more I interact with people, the more I am determined to deny myself. I see the importance of really servicing other people, living life for somebody other than myself. And that to me is one of the things outside of my relationship with my husband. I am finding that that is one of the things that is helping me to draw nearer to the Lord. Serving other people, living life for others. That even, and this is, and when I say serving other people, I'm not just talking about, oh, let me help you, let me get the door for you, let me help. I don't mean just acts of service, but I'm really talking about even down to decision making, just like what I was sharing. Every response that I give to anybody in this ministry, I have to understand that that directly impacts my husband and how I make him look. So when I say I'm living life for somebody other than myself, I'm living life for him. I'm living life for other people. Okay, is this even information I need to share with you? Are you able to handle it? Not just, oh, well, this is truth, so I'm just going to say it. But are you even mature enough to handle what I know? Or do I need to give you some other information? So when I'm talking about living life for somebody else, I'm talking about even in our decision making, the way we interact with people. How is what I'm going to say today, how is that going to impact you? And how is it going to impact the atmosphere of the ministry? Are we going to still be able to look at each other after I say what I say? Or are you going to be wounded, for life, and it's going to take deliverance, for you to come out of this because I just needed to say what I needed to say in the moment? So when I'm talking about servicing other people, I'm not just talking about acts of service, but I'm really talking about living life outside of ourselves, where we really do esteem others higher than ourselves, where we really do think about the needs of other people above what we think we need or what we think we want. Really, really being caring and compassionate about other people and their growth and how the way we live impacts them. So when I say service, it includes all of that. Live life outside of yourself. Know that everything we do impacts somebody else. And when we're in a ministry like this, and it's a real tight-knit community, of families that we have, and we're family, so everything we do is going to impact the atmosphere. And so we need to be thinking about those things. We need to think about that when we're talking about service, which goes right along with this idea of, service outside of your home and your close friends and family. Other people are impacted by the things that we do. And then the question is, how do I want to impact people? I think we all have a story of, wish I had done that differently. Oh, I wish I had responded differently. If I could just take that back. And we can. But it does not mean we can't do something different going forward. We don't have to keep repeating the same things. So let's keep that in mind, that our presence and our purpose in this earth is really meant to positively impact somebody else's life, and we're going to impact them one way or the other. But let's make sure that somebody else is benefiting from that. Let's bow our heads and pray. Heavenly Father, we praise you, we glorify your name, Lord God. We honor you, we reverence you, Lord. We love you, and we're so grateful for who you are, God. We're grateful for this opportunity that we've had to come together, and we're thankful, Lord God, for just these things that we've had to discuss. And I pray, Lord God, that every time we come together, that these things that you open up to us would just get into our hearts, and that we will be able to examine ourselves about where we really are, and allow you to show us even the deeper things and how it plays out in our everyday life, that we would not reject where we are, so that we can continue to grow and grow closer to you and grow in our purpose, so that we can fulfill the purpose that you have designed for us individually. In the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, we pray, we thank you, Lord God. Amen.